Believe it or not, lack of shoulder mobility and increased injury risk when it comes to your shoulders is one of the most common problems people struggle with. In fact, probably 9 out of 10 people that I have worked with in my entire career have had shoulder injuries and have been struggling with impaired range of motion, pain, aches, and stuff they should not be struggling with, especially the younger ones. You gotta keep in mind that shoulder mobility is actually not that important for people who do not have arms. However, if you are one of the few people who do have arms, chances are you're gonna need at least some of those exercises. Even more so the stronger you become throughout your other training goals, and even more so the older you become. And if you are in all three of those categories, someone who does have arms, who does train, and who is becoming older, then this is actually non-negotiable. Lucky for you, I've put together the most comprehensive mobility guide when it comes to your shoulders that does not just work on flexibility, but actually teaches you how to properly work on your shoulder health when it comes to strength, as well as flexibility and coordination, covering pretty much everything you can think of that you require for healthy, strong, and bulletproof shoulders. So if you're ready, I'm gonna head to the gym and we're gonna have a lot of fun together. Now, our first cluster is gonna be in a quadruped position, so we're gonna get on all four, shoulder width apart, arms and legs, and all we're gonna do is switch between shoulder adduction, pulling our shoulder blades together, and abduction, lengthening them as much as we can. Try and relax your neck a little bit and pull your shoulder blades together and extend them all the way. This is going to teach you how to adduct and abduct your scapula on command, as well as put some pressure on your shoulders, just so we can add the tiniest bit of strength as well to this movement. A very easy one, yet a very important exercise that we're gonna build upon later with the harder variations. Next up, we're gonna stay in this quadrupedal position, and all we wanna do is sway to the left and sway to the right. Now you're gonna notice we're starting with very tiny movements, and we're doing that on purpose. We wanna start learning how to activate the muscles surrounding our shoulders, just so we can build real mobility and not fool ourselves into thinking we are more flexible or more limber than we are. So just right side and left side and back to the middle. Moving to the next exercise, if you've been paying attention, you know what's coming. We're gonna move forward, which is gonna require the tiniest bit of strength in our back and shoulders as well. And we're gonna move backwards, however, a longer range of motion this time, but our hands are gonna stay flat on the ground to add this nice rotation in our arms. Move forward, lengthen your shoulders diagonally to the ground, and move backwards with your hands planted flat, and we have this internal rotation in our arms. One more time, moving forward. Now, I would like to very much advise for this exercise to hold it statically at the very front, which is, as I said, gonna require a little bit of strength, but that is absolutely worth it. And the same goes for being back here, turning our elbows inwards and pushing our hips back with our hands flat on the floor. Now we have added a lot of strength to those mobility exercises with the lowest possible impact on our rotator cuff, so we don't get hurt in our joint if we are lacking the mobility. Moving on, we have our first circular movement for tiny rotations. In our rotator cuff, you can start with very tiny movements, and if you feel more comfortable and you do not have any pain, then you can start increasing your range of motion in this exercise. Go to the left side and of course switch directions, going for full rotations on both sides. Try and keep your arms fully extended during all of these exercises, because this is gonna force us to work a lot more with our shoulders, and you're gonna feel it pretty quickly, especially if you go for the full time with these exercises, meaning we're gonna go for a full minute with each one of those. If you add it to your repertoire, be sure to, for instance, do 2 sets of a full minute before you move on to the next exercise. Next up, we're gonna place our hands Just like so, fingers pointed forward, and this time we're gonna move back, pushing our chest down towards the ground, which is gonna open up our chest and anterior delts, lengthening on the inside and releasing a lot of tension surrounding our rotator cuff. At the very back, we're gonna pull our shoulder blades together and lengthen our arms as much as we can. And then we're gonna move forward once more, releasing a little bit of that tension before we move back. Again, now we wanna actively push our chest down as much as we can and pull our shoulder blades together as much as we can, lengthening our arms, because this is how we're gonna get rid of all that tension, and we're gonna do so with a lot of control, meaning we are actively building mobility instead of flexibility. If you do not know the difference, flexibility is how much you can stretch a muscle, while mobility is how far you can take a joint through an ever-increasing range of motion. This moves us to the next level, down on our elbows. We're gonna bring our hands together and once again going through scapular adduction and scapular abduction. Now you're gonna notice a big difference between working with extended arms and working with bent arms. Totally depending on you, you're gonna find one easier than the other. I find the one with extended arms a little bit easier because I can activate my scapular musculature a little bit better. But as I said, that's gonna depend on your mind-muscle connection and what kinds of movements you are used to. All the way together, pull them in, and all the way apart, lengthen your shoulders as much as you can. You can hold the lowest point by flexing your traps, pulling your shoulder blades together, and then you can hold at the very top, also statically, by flexing your chest and your anterior delts, which is gonna pull them apart. Pull in and extend. Very simple. Moving us to our first static exercise in this cluster, we're gonna grab our left arm and bring it through to the right side, shoulder and hand in complete contact with the ground. And from here, we're gonna start opening our right arm towards the ceiling. And we're just gonna hold statically for 20 to 30 seconds. Now, when it comes to all of the static exercises, 30 seconds is how long we wanna hold most of them, because according to science, this is the most effective time to hold, meaning 40 to 50 seconds does not yield more results than holding for 30 seconds. Take a short break in between, relax, and then of course, repeat for both sides, just so we don't end up fully imbalanced. Now we can start increasing the intensity, still staying in our quadrupedal position. All we need to do for that is raise our knees. We can extend both legs if you want to, but you can also keep them a little bit bent, which is going to take off the stretch from your legs, and you can focus more on the stretch in and around your shoulders and chest. So what we want to do from here is basically just push our chest towards our legs as much as we can, but we also want to lengthen our arms as much as we can and pull our shoulder blades together in the back. And this one we're going to hold statically also, if possible, for 30 seconds, which is not only going to help you build flexibility, but also a lot of static strength in and around your shoulders, which is an amazing bonus to have in any sort of flexibility or mobility training. You can release for a little bit and then repeat once more. Elevate your hips and push down as much as you can. Moving on to the next exercise, we're gonna open up a little bit wider. We're gonna keep our knees on the ground and we're gonna move laterally by bringing one shoulder down towards the ground. Keep your arm fully extended, lengthening our pectorals, anterior delts, and biceps insertions, releasing all of the tension surrounding our rotator cuff before we move up and switch to the other side. Shoulder down, you can bend the other arm, rotate, hold, and switch. Now this exercise not only feels really amazing, but is absurdly effective in opening up our anterior chain. And what you can do with this one is switch between dynamic exercises, meaning we'll do right side, left side, to static holds. 30 seconds down here, switch, 30 seconds down here, and then move on. Play around with it and find out which you enjoy most, and then still do both. And for our last exercise in this cluster, we have a way more intense exercise. For those of you who are a little bit more advanced or just want to try out something new, we're gonna move our hands a little bit further forward, and we're gonna elevate our knees once more. Now, before we were here, a little bit shorter, which is gonna make the exercise a little bit easier, a classic downward dog. And this time we are here, making the exercise a little bit harder because we're gonna move into a puppy pose, is what's called. Basically, we're gonna once again lengthen our arms, pull our shoulder blades together, and push our chest towards the ground. And you're gonna notice not only is this a lot harder and puts a lot more pressure on your shoulders, pushing our back into spinal extension, especially our thoracic back, and lengthening our entire anterior chain all the way up to our belly button. We can release, take a short break, and repeat once more. Absurdly effective at opening up our anterior chain completely. Amazing stretch, yet a little bit more advanced. This moves us to our next cluster, stick-assisted exercises. You don't need like a fitness stick, you can use a broomstick. That's what I do at home. And we're gonna grab it a little bit wider apart. We're gonna close our arms fully, and now we're gonna start activating all of our shoulder and scapular musculature by going through, just like before, adduction and abduction. You have to learn to actively pull your shoulder blades together and elongate them as well. Stuff like that is gonna help you with frozen shoulder syndrome, for instance, or scapular winging, which a lot of people struggle with, and scapular placement. And doing this with a stick takes off a lot of pressure from our rotator cuffs, as opposed to doing this in a quadrupedal position. While this makes it easier for the musculature, it takes a little bit more mind-muscle connection to work through a very long range of motion. Extend fully and pull together. Moving us to the next scapular placement exercise, scapular elevation and scapular depression. Scapular elevation, pulling our shoulder blades up as much as we can, and then scapular depression, pulling them down. You don't need to keep your arms fully extended. You can bend them a little bit when pulling in, but lengthen them as much as you can when pulling up. This is gonna make it a little bit easier for you to go through these movements. Pull them down and pull them up. What I would also advise is making sure that you're not diagonally forward like so, but to actually try and pull up to above your head, or even a little bit further back if you do have the thoracic and shoulder mobility, and work from there. Pull up as much as you can and pull down as much as you can. This is going to activate a little bit more of your back musculature in conjunction with your shoulder musculature. And since they usually work together, you're not going to isolate your shoulders when working like so. This is gonna help you activate this entire chain in a more controlled fashion. This moves us from our symmetrical to our asymmetrical exercises. Pull in the left side and extend. Pull in the right side and extend. This is gonna teach us a lot more control than we do need when we go for symmetrical exercises. And since we usually, as humans, don't really go for symmetrical movement patterns in our day-to-day life, this is gonna simulate a little bit more accurately what we do and what we need in our day-to-day life. Extend, adduct, abduct, and repeat on the other side. And of course, the same goes for scapular elevation and depression. And on the other side, scapular elevation and depression. This one is a little bit harder. You're gonna notice that all of these short and controlled exercises are actually way harder than they seem. And you're gonna feel it pretty quickly in your shoulders, especially if you're not used to going through these exercises. So try and work your way up to a full minute before you move on to the next exercise and take a short break in between. Moving on to our first rotational exercise, symmetrical rotations, arms completely extended, pull back all the way. You can release your fingers so you do not turn your arms too much into this external rotation, which may lead to injury. Or you can grab a little bit further apart, which is gonna help you go through a longer movement. And over time, the more flexible you become, the closer you can bring your arms together. And while we are moving, now, since we have learned this, wanna go through abduction, elevation, adduction, and depression before we repeat into the other direction. And this exercise is by far one of my favorites because those long rotational movements feel amazing for our shoulders. And if you are going through this actively by pulling your shoulder blades apart, pulling them up, pulling them together and pulling them down, you are now combining all of the exercises we did before into one singular movement while including a full rotation in both rotator cuffs, which is an amazing exercise in general. This moves us to asymmetrical rotations. Fix one arm, only move the other one, and then switch directions. One arm is fixed and only one arm moves. If you can, keep them both fully extended. Be sure not to hit your head with the stick and go for long and controlled movements. Once again, we are asymmetrically working through elevation, adduction, depression, and switching sides, and then switching directions, of course, so we can learn all of this without becoming a imbalanced Quasimodo. For our next rotational exercise, we're gonna grab shoulder width apart, and now we're gonna turn just like so. Once again, very short movements in our rotator cuff, but they do help release a lot of tension. If you fix your hands fully, you're gonna have a little bit more wrist mobility as well. I almost forgot what it's called. And if you let them a little bit loose, you can go for longer movements in your shoulders. So try both of them out. Fix your hands completely, close them hard, or let them a little bit more loose and go through longer rotations in both of your shoulders. Now with this exercise, we have two variations. One where we lengthen, abduct our shoulder blades and go through the movement. This, once again, requires a lot more strength and a lot more control. And of course, we have the same with adducted shoulder blades. Once again, a lot of control and a lot more strength than we are used to, even though those movements are really short. Trust me, if you go through a handful of these, you're gonna feel your shoulders burning and you're gonna notice that you're building strength and endurance with flexibility, which leads to mobility. Moving us to our final stick-assisted exercise in this cluster, we're gonna elevate our arms, elevate our shoulders. We're gonna stay as closely as possible to our back, and now we're gonna bend in our arms and pull down into scapular depression, opening up our chest and shoulders, and then very close to our back. Reverse the entire movement and elevate our scapula, opening up our chest and anterior delts while strengthening our scapular musculature, meaning our traps and our rear delts. And combining that with the tiniest bit of thoracic mobility and thoracic strength. Flex your spinal erectors, which is gonna push your stomach out, stay fully upright, and go through the movement in a controlled fashion. Pull your shoulder blades down and elevate them as high as you can. Moving us to what is probably our shortest cluster, we're gonna start out in a push-up starting position. Get those knees up, turn your hands slightly outwards. Now we're going through scapular push-ups, a little bit harder than the ones in a quadrupedal position because we have a lot more weight on those shoulders. Pull them together, keep your legs extended, and pull them apart all the way. You can also switch between spinal extension in your lower spine and spinal flexion in your entire spine. When going through this movement, this is gonna help you go through longer movements, and over time you can start fixing your spine in a neutral or extended position and work like so. Amazing stretch and amazingly helpful at learning not only control but also strengthening all of those scapular muscles. The same thing goes for this variation of our dynamic shoulder openers. Move forward and reverse by pushing down. This time we're rolling over our toes and pushing our hips down, which is gonna push our shoulders forward and is going to require a lot more strength. Additionally, we have a little bit more wrist mobility as well, and we're going to actively push from here, elevate and lengthen our shoulders as much as we can. The same goes for our arms, and we want to repeat this once again. If we can go for a full minute, that would be absolutely amazing, because we are building insane strength. Not to mention that all of these dynamic exercises feel really amazing for our shoulders. Not just the strength aspect, not just the endurance aspect, but also the enjoyment aspect of this exercise. And for our final one in this baby cluster, we're once again gonna get into our push-up position with our arms extended, and we're gonna go for complete archer push-ups. Just like before, shoulder down, bend one arm, shoulder down, bend one arm, and this once again is gonna open up our entire anterior chain right here in the front side. And the more you release in your pecs and in your delts right here, the more your shoulders are gonna naturally move back into their position where they're supposed to be. If you're really tight here, you're gonna pull your shoulders together, which is gonna in turn lead to rounded back and bad posture. And once you start releasing from here while strengthening those scapular muscles, now we're gonna automatically and naturally move into this upright position. Moving us to the wall assisted cluster, we're gonna get as closely to a wall as we can, and with the inside leg, we're gonna step forward into this lunging starting position. Push your upper body against that wall. We're gonna start once again with a very simple, very easy exercise. First, extend your arm. We're actively pressing it against the wall, and we're gonna use the other one to open up. We are adding thoracic and lumbar rotation to our shoulder opening, which, as we said, since all of those muscles work in conjunction with each other, naturally working on all of them combined in this compound movement style, or this longer movement pattern style, is absolutely amazing at teaching us how to activate all of these muscles in a more natural way. Isolation exercises are absolutely amazing for hypertrophy if you want to build a lot of size quickly, but compound movements are king when it comes to teaching you how to use your body the way it's supposed to be used. Moving us to the next exercise, we're gonna have to switch legs, inside leg as closely to the wall as possible, and the outside leg in this lunging starting position. This time we're gonna start out open, just like so, and we're gonna move upwards and downwards. Now, this is a little bit more back focused. However, by moving up like so, we are lengthening our lats and lengthening the surrounding muscles around our rotator cuff by actively pulling up and back. And now we basically have a complete stretch of our anterior chain all the way up to our fingertips. Move forward, releasing some tension, pulling up on the right side, and then move back, lengthening the left side all the way, going through your quads, your hip flexors, your obliques and abdominals with this lumbar rotation as well, lengthening our lats and anterior and even posterior delts, also our triceps, and we're actively pulling up. You're gonna even feel a little bit of a stretch in your fingers when you do this exercise. This moves us to the next variation. Without changing anything in our legs, we're gonna turn our upper body towards the wall and go through the same movements. Stay very close, move down all the way, and this time we're lengthening the other side, and we have a little bit more stretch on our pectorals this time, which once again, since they are connected to our shoulders, releasing tension there will help us release stress and tension in our shoulders themselves. Lengthen and pull back as much as you can. Hold for a second or two and reverse. And this exercise is also really great to hold statically in this very long position.
if you can, for 20 to 30 seconds before you move on to the next repetition. Now, moving to the next variation, once again, we're gonna step forward with the other leg, the inside leg, and this time we're gonna bring our left hand down on the ground and our right hand on the same level. We are just using the wall to help us with balance and also to leverage our body into a deeper rotation. Right arm opening up towards the ceiling, and want to turn as widely as we can, pushing against our left arm to turn us deeper into this rotation, and we want to push our right arm against the wall, strengthening all those muscles around our scapula and shoulder blade before we release and repeat once more. Now, this exercise is pretty easy, but it feels absolutely amazing, especially for people, for instance, who struggle with back pain and lumbar pain. This is gonna help you release tightness even there around your obliques and surrounding your spinal erector, and this is gonna feel absolutely amazing, not only for your shoulders, and it is a very low impact exercise, meaning we barely have any pressure on our shoulder joint at all, making this a very nice rehabilitation exercise as well. Moving us to our next and final cluster for today, the hanging cluster, one that you should definitely not skip. While this is one of the harder ones, we still have a handful of exercises that are really easy to replicate. And the first one, and the most important one of all of them, is the classic passive decompressive hang. We want to grab that bar and we're going to start relaxing everything except for our forearms, because we want to decompress basically every single joint and every single vertebrae in our entire body, stretching and lengthening all of our musculature, and just hanging there for 20, 30, 40 seconds feels so goddamn amazing. That is why I do this every single day. Dead hangs are one of the handful of exercises that I've been doing daily, and they have helped me a lot, releasing all the tension around our rotator cuff, decompressing it, which is going to help a lot with people who struggle with impingement, for instance, and stretching our lats and all the surrounding muscles, as well as releasing all that back pain if you have it, and all the tightness in our back as well, and even surrounding our hips and knees. Take a short break and of course repeat. Now, for the more advanced ones here, we're gonna move on to the single-sided passive hang. Grab on, hold really, really hard, and release all the way. The more you can relax into this position, the more stretch you're gonna have. And I feel it, for instance, most in my triceps insertions at the top here, around my shoulder, because this is where I am the tightest, but depending on you, you're gonna feel it either here or more in your chest. And of course, you're gonna have to switch it up. Now, this is gonna help you build a lot of grip strength, and I would advise going for learning how to hang for a full minute. This is gonna be absurdly effective at decompressing all of those joints and helping you release tension and tension-related pains. Advancing in difficulty, we're gonna move to scapular pull-ups. So the opposite of scapular push-ups, we're pulling our shoulder blades together and down into adduction and depression, and then apart and up into abduction and elevation. Now here, we're gonna require once more a lot of grip strength, but learning how to do this is also really important, for instance, for people who wanna learn to spam pull-ups like it's nothing. Having control over your scapular musculature is very important when it comes to calisthenics exercises like these. Moving us to the next level, and if you've paid attention before, you know that we're gonna move from symmetrical to asymmetrical scapular pull-ups, because as I said, we do not usually do a lot of symmetrical movements in our day-to-day life, and this is not only gonna help us strengthen a little bit more, because moving with one side requires a little bit more strength, but help us also work those unilateral movement patterns. And last but definitely not least, the most advanced exercise in this entire cluster, in this entire video, is gonna be skin the cat. One of my favorite shoulder mobility exercises, hanging in there. And as you can see, we're lengthening everything around our shoulders in our anterior chain, and we're helping ourselves by using gravity to pull us down into this amazing anterior chain stretch. Hang in there, enjoy how amazing it feels. And if you're doing this for the first time, or you're learning how to do this, be sure to have like a box or something you can stand on, just so you do not hurt yourself. And over time, you can start moving away from this and going through dynamic skin the cat. Meaning, instead of going through the movement and holding the stretch, we're gonna use all our strength and control to reverse the movement actively. And there you have it, a myriad of shoulder exercises that are gonna keep you busy at least for a year. If you can learn all of them and go through all of them, you're not gonna need any other shoulder mobility or flexibility exercises.
With that said, if you like the video and come on, join us. We do stuff like that pretty often, which means that I'll very likely see you soon. So until then, have a good one. Captain Cairo, peace out.